This is Bruce Ennis, past president, past chief, current director of Citizens Service Company. I joined on July 7th, 1958, and at that time, of course, it was a regular application process. Our applications required 2 active members of the company to sign in order to apply. When I joined, we were at this location. The previous location was at the old town hall. We'll talk about that later. And I think I gave a picture of it, and that was 1986. We didn't move in here until 1925, which is before I joined, of course, this location, and expanded since. The system was built on a point system. You got so much activity, you know, for alarms, fundraisers, cleanups, fire prevention, and those type things. It was a point system you had to be active. We had a school professional plan that would have been implemented since World War II. What that is we have school members age 16 or older, up to 18, that can join the Citizens Service Company. And that went into effect way back in the early 40s. And that was a system where it's really benefited the company. It's benefited the city, town of Clayton as well, and the Clayton Fire Company, because a lot of those members are kind of equidistant to either Clayton or Smyrna from that location at the high school. So it's been a good recruitment tool over the years. And we have another system, a cadet program system, that has been implemented just the last year or two. It allows 14-year-olds to come in as cadets. And they can't really work at the scene inside a building or anything, but they can work outside, assisting other firefighters once they get their training. At the time I joined, July 7th, the chief was Robert Ferris. This was the second of his 2 years as chief. 6 months later, E. Reynolds Bradley, which many of you probably know, you know him pretty well throughout the state for his accomplishments, became chief in 1959 through 1964. Now, the company at that time, we had, in the way of apparatus, we had a 1958 Ford rescue truck. We had a 1953 American of France pumper, a 1958 American of France pumper. We had no aerial device, nor did we have any tanker at that time. We did have access to a milk truck. Senger, S-E-N-G-E-R, had a milk truck delivery service. And anytime we would call him, he would send 1 or whatever number of trucks we needed, fill them with water, and respond to the rural alarm. So that was a great help until we got a tanker. Well, one of the things I think I might report that's memorable is that I took an interest in historical affairs, particularly in the company. And in 1961, I was the first elected, 62, I was elected to the office of historian, which no longer exists, by the way. But I was a historian for 8 years. Yeah, what we have here, of course, is 1928 American of France. It was one of the first vehicles, motorized apparatus that we bought after the chemical truck that we bought in 1960. And this one is a 1,000-gallon per minute pumper. And it's still in service as far as being active for fire scenes. However, in the last time I think we actually officially used it was the Wooten fire. I talked about 1964. But this truck here has been refurbished, of course. We have a motion on the floor to never get rid of it. Not that anybody's want to, but as you can see by the sign here, it's a 1928 American France Take 145 Metropolitan, 1,000 gallon per minute. At that time, it only cost $10,800. $10,800. But We use it in parades, and we use it for memorial services for line of duty death in particular, or past chief, something like that. Otherwise, it's pretty well here in the museum for anyone to look at. Major events as I was joining, again before I joined, was two major fires in 1948. There was what was known as the Wilson Cabinet Fire, which was a company that, by the way, Reynolds and I both worked for at a different location. It was located out on Glenwood Avenue. We worked in the office, Reynolds and I, which was a 3-story opera house. It was a theater on the second floor. In any event, and that's where our original firehouse was, by the way, until 1925. They had a major fire there, and which I presented photographs of, and it did a lot of damage, burnt the whole third floor off, in fact. And a lot of records from Masonic lodges and different places that were stored there. Also, in 1964, around January 16th, I recall, we had a clothing store in Smyrna known as Wooten Clothing Store. It's right on this street, about 2 blocks down, before you get to the Four Corners. And there was a major fire that brought in a lot of companies throughout the state. And in fact, Harvey Ryan from Holloway Terrace was at the scene as well. Dover was called in with their pumper to pump from Lake Como to Wooten's Clothing Store here on Commerce Street. That's about a half mile, maybe, quarter mile. And it was a major fire. I don't remember that very well. Now, I was in the company at that time, of course. That was 1964. I became chief in 1964, 65. Those 2 years I was a chief. We had pretty much similar rules that we have today, and prior to that, members were required to go to training, both training at the Citizens Hose Company and at the State Fire School. When I joined in '58, we didn't have a state fire school. It wasn't, the bill authorized it didn't happen until 1964. And then, of course, shortly after it became a bona fide fire school, and one of the best in the nation. So there were several things that I can mention in regard to what went on. We did require our membership to keep active, not only fundraising activities, but alarms and training. And we had memorial services. We expected them to go to the memorial services of members as well. And to keep active. Usually a member required to be on probation for 2 years. Now, if they're from another company and joining the Citizens Hose Company, it's only 1 year probation. The Citizens Hose Company marching band, and it's pretty much stayed together over the years. In fact, there's a number of things that band has accomplished. They were invited to 3 inaugural parades, and all those parades, they attended all but one because of a snowstorm. The first one, that was John F. Kennedy's memorial inaugural parade, and it was snowing so bad we couldn't go to that parade, and it was canceled. But the Obama parade and the Biden parade, inaugural parade, the fire company and the band marched at those parades. And there are a lot of other activities as well that the band participated in. They were invited in 1948, just 2 years after they were organized, to be the official band of the first day sale of the 300th anniversary postage stamp celebration held at Dover. It was a pretty large event. And the 300th anniversary had Ben Franklin, when he started volunteer system in Philadelphia. And that was a great event to be invited to. Also, we participated in an annual national firefighter recognition parade, and that was in D.C., both in 1985 and '86. And the band went on to participate in a number of other events throughout the county, state, and tri-state area. And we got invited in 2001 and attended the Dublin St. Patrick's Day Parade in Dublin, Ireland. We had a large group go. We flew over and we had quite a celebration. And while we're there, the main parade got postponed due to mad cow disease. So we picked up 2 more parades in addition to the other 3 we had lined up. So we still had a lot of parades in double arm, but the main parade got canceled due to mad cow. So there were a number of parades. There was a Fire Force parade held in Philadelphia at the Naval Yard. We were invited to by one of the congressmen, and the band attended that particular event. So they've been pretty successful. And in Delaware, at the annual conventions in the past, not recently, there's been what they call a Governor's Cup Award for best appearing, 25 men or more. We've got that cup, one of those cups 30 times in the history of this company. And other years we've won some second place trophies, but we have 30 Governor's Cups. Just open this trophy case over here. And there's more upstairs and more in the garage we haven't put out yet. I became president in 1979 and continued for 8 years through 1986. We had a number of things as president. I oversaw the school provisional plan then as well. We made quite a few accomplishments. We started attending church as a group annually. Each of those years I was president. We started a data system for all personnel records, that type thing. And usually we handled the fiscal affairs of the company since I was chairman, as well as the board of directors being the president. So we had a pretty good year, eight year, and of course, after planning the anniversary for 3 years, I think we had a pretty successful anniversary. We had one of the years we attended church, actually, and we started out with a social activity here at the firehouse, inviting the community in, like the open house and that type of thing. And then we went into our program in following days. It lasted about a week, different activities. We had fire activities for the public to see, firefighting activities we set up. And we also climaxed it with a dinner that our guests were invited to, and our membership, of course. And we made certain awards at the 100th anniversary and that type of thing. We had one chief who'd been a chief for 20 years, John Morris, and we presented him with an award. Eventually, he received recognition at the State Association as well. So, and we climaxed, of course, with a 100th anniversary parade. We gave out awards and so forth. Of course, we didn't compete because we were sponsored it, you know. So we couldn't get any cup that day. I first started in Smyrna in a Civil Air Patrol Cadet Squadron. And then I joined the Air National Guard back in 1958 as well, serving 2 3-year enlistments. And that was based in Newcastle. And I was in civil engineering in the crash rescue section. And before I retired, I was actually assistant chief of the fire department up at the Air Base, Newcastle County. And from then I went on to, of course, join the company the same year, and fire company. And then, of course, I was appointed to Delaware State Police in 1962. And that was a 20-year mandatory enlistment. And a lot of these things that I'm talking about being chief, I had to kind of juggle with the state police that I was involved with. In fact, at that particular time, I was in charge of the state police of the executive security, which is the governor's security, Governor Sherman Tribbitt. So a lot of these things that we're doing, we're juggling my time with that job and the volunteer fire service. Since that time, I've been appointed to the State Emergency Response Commission, representing the Delaware Volunteer Firemen Association. I've been past president of county associations, both the county chiefs and county firemen, past president of both the county, the State Fire Chiefs Association, president emeritus of Delaware Volunteer Firemen Association, and being active over the years, about 50 in fact, with the fire department. And I was active with the Delaware Volunteer Firemen Association, and I'm president emeritus of that as well. All those dates are written down and so forth. So that's some of the activities I was involved with over the years. In the fire company, for about 45 years, I was the officer in charge of the pension and the insurance. And here we are 45 years later, I'm still officer for pension and insurance. So you can keep active in the fire service, and I always tried to do that with my tenure. Left the Delaware State Police in 1982. I ran for office for the first time here in Smyrna, and I ran for state representative. That November of 1982, I was elected and served 25 years in the House of Representatives till 2007, and then 2007 to 2022, another 15 years. I served in the state Senate. Senator Vaughn, the late Senator Vaughn, stepped down due to his health, and I ran for the special election in 2007 for his last 3-year term. So total, I've served 40 years in the General Assembly. I had quite a bit of public safety background from the events I talked to you about. I was definitely interested in trying to see first responders get the tools they needed to do the job. And there's numerous bills. I have a pamphlet that lists all the bills, in fact, since 1982. Numerous bills. One of them was, I think, a good accomplishment was workman's compensation for volunteer fire companies. That bill was passed only about 2 years after I was in session, 1984. One of the biggest bills I think I'm most proud of is the statewide paramedic program. We started that, and the bill took 5 years to get through General Assembly. The governor didn't want to fund it, and he wouldn't let his Republican-controlled committees in the House vote it out of committee. So we went over to the Senate, and Senator William Torbert, who's now retired, has a funeral agency in Dover. He and I co-sponsored a Senate bill that did the same thing. It passed the Senate, went to the House. We did get it passed the House, and Governor Council vetoed the bill. And a lot of commotion developed throughout the whole state when he vetoed that bill. And by the following January, he was ready to talk paramedic bill. We put a new bill in, the Senate Bill 1, that passed pretty readily through both houses and became law for the first statewide paramedic service in the state, in the country, statewide. Delaware being so small, we can do things that other states can't get accomplished because of our size. And there were numerous other bills. I can go on and list them, but I don't want to take up much of your time. I just want to mention that there was very few bills that came through in my 25-year tenure that I didn't have my name on. And it was either co-sponsor or sponsor. And usually when they came to the House or Senate, depending on where I was, I floor managed the bill because of my background in the fire service and can answer the questions. So I'm very proud to represent the first responders, both the EMS, paramedics, EMTs, law enforcement officers, and of course volunteer fire service. I was paramedics in the state of Delaware. The only ones that had paramedics were the Newcastle County at that time. The city of Dover had a paramedic group, the city itself, not the county. They had some paramedics that had started out. And of course, the Delaware State Police had medics on their helicopter, and they were just getting into the program. What this bill did is allow each county to start a county-wide paramedic program. it would consider this the city's program if they wanted to stay in the paramedic business, but they chose to go with the county. So they closed their paramedic program down, and the Kent County program picked up Dover and everything in Kent County. Newcastle County had a great program and still does, and Sussex as well. And it's been expanded over the years. But you got to realize that in Delaware, when we started that program, it was a two-tier system. In other words, you still had the EMTs, the emergency medical technicians, or at that time called ambulance personnel, that transported, but the paramedics didn't transport. So they only dispatched on critical incidents, and the dispatch is all done by the EMTs that always are responding, but sent by the call boards. So it was interesting, and it's worked out great, I think, for the state. But in any event, a lot of things have changed over the years. Thank goodness we have now call boards in all 3 counties, and of course for that we get the benefit of computer-aided dispatch, 800 megahertz system that I was involved with pretty heavily while I was in the state police, which is better communication, interoperability between agencies, can talk on the same channel. A lot of advancement in fire school. We had a sequential program that started with Farmership 1, Farmership 2, rescue tools and all that. And then now, today, they even have availability of what they call a Fire School Academy, whereby you can send a student there for 22 days, over a 22-day period. They're not there 22 days straight, but which encompasses all those basic programs I talked about, plus fire officer leadership. So a lot of changes in the fire service. One of the negative things, of course, is we don't have many volunteers as we did in the past. We were successful in the past to have many family members continue to join in fire companies. We have some members, we can name Ferris and Wilsons and Moods and even Ennis's and Mars's. We have the grandfather, father, brother, sister, cousin, nephew, all of them over a period of years joined the fire company. And that's when I joined, because my dad had been the chief driver for the fire company back in the early 40s. And my brother joined the band in 1948, and he became president. So a lot of changes, but one thing that's been great for recruitment and retention has been the fact that we have a school professional plan that helps quite a bit with retention and recruitment. I can take you through that list of the band, and I can relate to you the people who have joined the company as firefighters as a result, and have been officers, and some even go on to statewide offices and county offices. So that's been a great thing. One of the things happened during the time I was president, the 8 years I was president, unfortunately was negative, and that was the fact we had our first line of duty death by a volunteer fireman from Citizens Hose Company, and the whole history of the company. What happened, the alarm came in, and we had a 19-year-old member named E. Thomas Tucker, and Mr. Tucker was riding on the side of the engine, and actually on the right side. And as we proceeded out Commerce Street to US 13, made a left turn. I guess the engine was running so fast that maybe he lost balance, or he lost his grip for some reason, and he fell off the right side of the vehicle. And what caused the problem was the head struck the curb, and that was August 22nd, 1982. And 5 days later, he died at the Wilmington Hospital. And we have a photograph, I think you have a photograph of the funeral procession. And we also have it on videotape that WBOC took. But, so that was a tragedy we hope we'll never see again in the company. In 1974, we went on the central call board for Kent County. And that's what gave us the availability to computer-aided dispatch and also 911 enhancements and E911 at some point later. But prior to that, we took the phone calls here at the firehouse, like many other stations did prior to 1974 in Kent County. In fact, we had a phone here to the firehouse that we could activate, disarm, and we still can't hear from the firehouse. And we had a location of a retired member. His name was Henry Dukes, who lived one street over, about 2 blocks, and west of here. And he took all the calls that we didn't receive when no one was at the firehouse, and he activated the siren. He and his wife activated. Also, we had a couple who were honorary members of the company, and that was Boyer and Haregrove, who both had a service station, Exxon, at the US 13 in Commerce Street, where this accident happened I told you about. And they would, if they received a call, if they heard the fire phone ring and they took the call, they could activate the fire alarm. So we had various sources of activating the fire alarm if somebody was not in the building. Most time, at that time, people were always in the building. You know, at that time, you didn't need to have a second job and that type of thing, and a lot of employment was in the town and not out of town like it is today. And we actually had people in the firehouse all the time, night and day. In fact, I had a member stopping here last week that just got 50-year membership. He said he stopped in the first time in 25 years. And he said, I'm surprised nobody was in the firehouse. Well, it is unusual, but it wasn't unusual in them days. I mean, we would have move equipment out for bingo, for instance, on Tuesday nights, because this was a social hall. And we would have to move trucks back in. Now for bingo, historically, we would be over around 11 o'clock at night. So the first thing we'd had to do is clean all the tables up, move all the chairs, sweep the firehouse, bring the trucks back in. At that time, even for some years, we had to move those tables at night, after midnight, to Woodland Beach. We had a dance hall down there called the Coliseum in my early years, and we would set these tables up for the dance. So it was nothing to be around the firehouse 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, you know. Okay, I would recommend that if anyone was interested in a public safety career and giving back to the community, finding camaraderie and work as teamwork, then the volunteer fire service is what they should apply for. We've had a number of EMTs, police officers, secretaries of public safety, dispatchers, and many others fields in public safety who have first started with a volunteer fire company before they became to that office. So if they're interested, as I mentioned, in public safety, then the volunteer service is what they should put their investment in my opinion.